secure, contain, protect, the mandate is clear. We operating in the shadows, feeding off the fear. Deep beneath the surface, in a sight you'll never find, locking up the nightmares that would fracture every mind.
All right, everyone, settle in, grab your coffee. I'm Dr. Wolf. Look, what we're about to go over today, it's going to fundamentally change how we think about Keter-class containment, how we define the word secure, and frankly, our relationship with reality itself.
Yeah, I said that, and I mean it. For decades, we've been the best box builders in the world, right? Deeper shafts, thicker walls, you name it, we build it. But here's the problem. What do you do when the thing you're trying to contain doesn't care about boxes? When it treats the laws of physics like, I don't know, a friendly suggestion? That's what we're up against. These old methods, what we call static containment, it's just not cutting it anymore. It's a stopgap, a band-aid. And we need a real solution before something decides our entire facility would look better as, a pile of conscious tapioca.
Okay, first things first, a brittle reality. I want you to forget everything you learned about containment just being about keeping monsters in a box. Because the problem we're facing now, the box is breaking. The room the box is in is breaking. You know what? The very concept of a box is starting to break.
Now, this warning didn't come from some sensor log or a research paper. No, this comes from SCP-073, Kane, a man who has been walking this earth since the beginning. So when one of the oldest beings we have in containment tells you that the fundamental structure of everything is getting fragile, you stop what you're doing and you listen.
The term we're using is conceptual decay. So what does that actually mean for you out in the field? It means the glue that holds reality together is coming unstuck. Think of it like the polar opposite of a Scranton reality anchor. Instead of reinforcing what's real, this rot actively unravels it. Hume levels are all over the place. Things are just popping into existence that have no business being here, and the basic rules of physics are starting to feel more like suggestions. You can't shoot this thing. It's a disease in the very code of the universe.
And that brings us to Section 2, the pestilence redefined. You all know SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. For decades, we've basically treated him like a medieval quack with a lethal touch. Turns out, we were wrong. So very wrong. He isn't misdiagnosing a disease in the body. He's misdiagnosing a disease in reality itself.
I've had, let's call it quality time with him. And trust me, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with before you so much as glance down his containment corridor.
You're going to hear him say this a lot, and he says it with this unshakable conviction. But I want to start this whole thing with a name, Dr. Ray Ham. He was a good man, a brilliant researcher, and he made the mistake of thinking he could reason with 49. Ray isn't with us anymore. So as we go through all this, remember that name. This is not a drill.
Look here. On the left, that's 049's theory. He sees the pestilence as a sickness. On the right, that's our new analysis. We now believe he's literally sensing this conceptual decay, this rot at the edges of a person's very being. He thinks his cure saves them, but what it actually does is just sever their connection to reality. He's not a doctor, he's a firewall, and a crude one at that.
See, he always talked about how meticulous his process was. Deliberate, careful. But with Ray, he claimed he sensed the pestilence so strongly, so urgently, that he had to act now. There were no notes, no questions, no prep. He just lunged. And that right there is the key. He didn't act like a doctor. He acted out of pure, unadulterated panic.
After it happened, Dr. Sherman went in there. He was furious, and he had every right to be. He didn't play games, he didn't humor the delusion, he just walked right up to 049 and told him exactly what he'd done to their friend and colleague. Just the cold, brutal truth.
And that was the reaction. Not some calm, scholarly defense of his methods. It was a raw, furious, emotional outburst. In that moment, he wasn't a man of science. He was a cornered animal, desperately trying to defend its actions. It was the first time we'd ever seen him completely lose that famous composure.
I said this to him myself during our last little chat, and you know what? He didn't deny it. He's not saving people. He sees these little metaphysical fractures around them, and he performs a kind of cosmological surgery. He makes his zombies because they're conceptually inert. They're dead ends. He's literally stuffing the cracks in the dam with bodies to try and stop the flood.
Which finally brings us to our solution. Section 3, the Night of Starlight. See, 049's method is a butcher's hack job. What we need is a surgeon. So, meet POI 7420, Brian Masters, or as we call him, the Astral Knight. He is our scalpel in this Very new, very strange kind of war.
So how does he do it? It all comes down to this concept he calls the weave. Now try to stick with me here. Imagine mana, raw magical energy, is like raw electricity. It's everywhere, it's chaotic, it's super dangerous to just touch. The weave? That's the wiring. It's the conduit, the interface that lets someone like Masters safely tap into that raw power and shape it. It lets him turn a chaotic surge of energy into a precise tool. It's kind of like the difference between a bolt of lightning hitting a field and the electricity running through the lights in this room. One is pure chaos, the other is structured, controlled, and useful. That's what the weave is for magic.
And here's how he uses that wiring. He's got 3 main ways of casting his spells, and you got to appreciate the tactical flexibility here. First up, vocal incantations. He literally speaks things into existence. Imagine being in a sword fight and being able to shout a word that makes your shield stronger. Hands are still free for combat. Super useful. Second, somatic motions. These are the intricate hand gestures. This is for stealth. He can weave a trap on the ground without saying a word, totally silent. And third, material sacrifice. This is his "oh crap" button. He can take a mundane object, a pebble, a piece of cloth, and basically burn the latent mana inside it for an instant, powerful effect. It's like a magical flashbang. The point is, he's got an answer for just about anything.
Which leads us to Section 4, Caging the Lizard. Now, theory is great and all, but we needed proof. The ultimate test case. So we put the knight in a room with our most infamous, most stubborn problem child, SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile. What happens when you put an unstoppable force of adaptation against a movable object of metaphysical rules?
The results were, well, they were unbelievable. No, Masters didn't kill 682, let's be real. But he did something we had literally never seen before. He stalled it. He basically gave its adaptive biology a blue screen of death. He started weaving spells directly into 682's body, changing the magical rules of its own structure faster than its cells could adapt. Imagine trying to solve a puzzle while someone is constantly changing the pieces. That's what he did to 682's biology. He didn't contain the lizard, he contained its greatest weapon, its ability to change. It was just stuck. We've never ever managed to do that before.
And the result? We're calling it biological stasis. Basically, he anchored 682's molecular structure to a fixed geometric constant. He didn't kill it. He paused it. He locked it into a single, unchangeable state, which made adaptation, transformation, even regeneration completely impossible.
This is the number of times in the entire recorded history of the Foundation that SCP-682's adaptation mechanism has encountered a logic error it could not solve. 1. For the first time, ever, the lizard stalled.
Okay, everybody take a deep breath. That was the wow, this is amazing part. Now we get to the what this means for you and how you're going to stay alive part. Section 5, the new protocols. How we operate is changing, right now, effective immediately.
So, during a Cater breach, your top priority is no longer just neutralization. First responders are now going to include reality benders like the Knight. Their job is to set up reality anchors to stabilize the area. Your job is to stay at least 50 meters back from any active weave manipulation and report any weirdness, any spatial distortions, immediately.
Let me be absolutely crystal clear. These are not toys. Unauthorized contact with the Knight's gear is grounds for termination. Don't even think about trying to scan the weave. Don't get curious. All testing requires Level 4 approval and a direct notification to the O5 Council themselves. There are no exceptions. There are no excuses.
SCP-073. You're going to want to pay close attention. Because what I'm about to teach you, it's not just about keeping the plants alive. It's about getting the answers nobody else can.
So, I know what the board says, what all those dusty manuals preach. Clinical detachment. I get it. I've worked side by side with guys like Dr. Gears. Legends, for sure. But here's the thing. You stare at something like it's a museum piece, you only get what a museum piece will give you. Me? I like to add a little spice, a little energy. You'll see why. My way gets results.
All right, first things first, the big one, the Kane effect. And listen, before you even think about saying hello, you need to get this tattooed on the inside of your eyelids. These rules are not optional, they're not friendly suggestions, they're the only thing standing between you and a very awkward conversation with the site director about his prized ficus plant, which is now a pile of charcoal.
You really got to wrap your head around the scale of this thing. We're not just talking about your desk plant. No. This is any soil-based life. Think about it. That wooden desk? Dead. The paper on it? Poof. Your cotton lab coat? Gone. It all just dies within a 20-meter radius. And if he touches it, it's just dust. Instantly.
So moving him from point A to point B, it's a whole production. I mean, look at this. Every single step has to be planned. We clear the entire route of anything organic, and I mean anything. I'm serious. Check the bottom of your boots right now. One stray clump of mud from outside could sterilize a whole corridor. We use totally non-organic transport, and we sweep before and after. There are absolutely no shortcuts here.
And this is his entire life. Everything in his cell, everything he touches, has to be man-made. Synthetic. I actually chose that reinforced polymer chair in his room. Not exactly a recliner, I know, but it's not about being cozy. It's about containment. Imagine not being able to pick up a paper book. Everything has to be on a screen. It's a whole world built out of plastic and metal, just for him.
Okay, now for his other little party trick. I call it the ultimate no-you card. See, any physical damage, anything at all, that you try to do to him, it just bounces right back to you, instantly, and perfectly. There was this incident back in New York. Some geniuses decided to try and mug him. Long story short, they all ended up in the hospital, and he didn't have a scratch on him.
Okay, safety briefing's over. Now we get to the really interesting part, the art of the interview. This is where the game changes. We're not just containing an anomaly anymore, we're accessing an asset. And not just any asset, we're talking about our living, breathing backup server. He's the Foundation's hard drive in human form.
And this, right here, is the difference between my method and, well, the old way. You can go in there all stone-faced with a clipboard, asking questions like a robot. You know what you'll get? Robot answers. Polite, but useless. But if you bring some energy to the table, if you actually build a rapport, that's when the magic happens. You get the real data, the stuff they thought was impossible to get.
So why is he so valuable? It comes down to one incredible, frankly terrifying ability. He has a perfect photographic memory, total recall. And when I say perfect, I mean perfect. Every single thing he sees, reads, or hears, it's locked in, forever. No degradation, no forgetting. Just there.
Okay, let's change the subject for a minute. We've been talking about all the amazing information we can get from him. But now, let's talk about the things he absolutely will not discuss. These are the locked vaults in his memory, the forbidden histories, and it's crucial you know where these lines are.
There are 3 main red flags. Number 1, that symbol on his forehead. We know it's ancient Sumerian. If you bring it up, he gets distressed immediately. So don't. Number 2, his limbs. They're artificial, made from something called beryllium bronze, which, by the way, pops up in some other very interesting files, but he says he has no idea where they came from. And number 3, his brother. SCP-076. He'll acknowledge he knows him, but he refuses to talk about him and insists they can never, under any circumstances, be in the same room. Period.
But lately, a new mystery has popped up, a really weird one. We were doing some cross-testing, and Kane started using these ancient, arcane words. He mentioned something called the weave. Now that's a term a completely different anomaly uses for, well, magic, reality-bending stuff. And here's the kicker. We never told him that word. He didn't learn it from us. He already knew it.
So naturally, I pushed a little. I asked him about this, about the idea of using this kind of power to force order on the world. And he looked at me and said, "Order, when forced upon reality, often creates a brittle world." Just let that sink in for a second. That's not something you learn from a book. That's wisdom from someone who's seen things, ancient things.
Welcome to the sharp end of the spear. We're here today because we don't have a lot of time, and you need to be brought up to speed on the entity you'll be working with, and let's be honest, potentially containing. I'm talking about SCP-0762, though most of you probably know him by the name he actually prefers, Abel.
Yeah, I wrote that, and I stand by every single word. Look, you've all read the files, you've memorized the numbers, but data doesn't even begin to cover it. To really understand Abel, you need to get your head around the sheer, overwhelming force you're dealing with. He's not a person like you or me. He's an event, a force of nature. And today, we're going to pull that event apart, piece by bloody piece.
So, first things first, let's cover the basics, the raw data. This is the monster on paper. This is the physical threat you need to respect if you plan on going home with all your limbs still attached.
And there it is, the clinical definition. See that object class, Keter? For you rookies in the back, that means if he decides he wants out of that box, he's probably going to get out. Our entire job is to make that process as difficult, as painful, and as temporary as humanly possible. He reanimates inside that big stone cube that's SCP-076-1, and you can bet that when he wakes up, he is always looking for a fight.
And please don't mistake this for something you'd see in a movie. The numbers we have on file are just absurd. I'm talking tearing through solid titanium like it's wrapping paper, taking a direct hit from a howitzer round and getting right back up. He can cross more than half a football field in the time it takes you to blink. He is, in every measurable way, physically on another level.
And this is his signature move. He doesn't carry weapons, he makes them. Right out of thin air. He'll reach into his shadow, what we think is some kind of subspace niche, and just pull out a blade. Swords, spears, axes, you name it, he's probably tried to kill someone with it. And the second it leaves his hand, it just dematerializes. So no, you can't pick one up for a souvenir. Don't even think about it.
But here's the thing. His body? That's only half the problem. The truly dangerous part of Abel is what's going on upstairs. Understanding his psychology is the absolute key to surviving him. It's also, by far, the hardest part of the job. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question. What is it that drives a being like this? What could he possibly want? It's not power. It's not money. It's not conquering the world in any way we'd understand. No, it's something way, way simpler, and a whole lot more dangerous for us.
Boredom. That's it. He is defined completely by an all-consuming, aggressive need for a genuine challenge. When Abel gets bored, he gets destructive. And his idea of curing boredom, well, that usually involves a body count hitting double digits. Our primary containment strategy is, basically, to keep the ancient murder god entertained.
Psychologically, he's a total black box, a perfect sociopath. Concepts we take for granted, like love, empathy, equality, they just don't compute. They're as foreign to him as the color blue is to a person born blind. He sees the world in a very simple binary. You are either a worthy challenge, or you are a thing to be broken. A glass doll, as he likes to put it.
Now, listen up. Every anomaly has a trigger. Or, in this case, a big, red, shiny button that you must never, ever, ever push. For Abel, it's a name. Cain, SCP-073, his brother. And let me be clear, bringing him up doesn't just make Abel angry. It triggers a complete, homicidal, system-wide cascade failure.
Those are his words, not mine. I was in the room when he said it, and I'm telling you, the temperature dropped about 20 degrees. This isn't a guideline, people. This isn't a suggestion. It's a guarantee. Do not mention Cain. Ever. Period.
Okay, this brings us to a crucial part of your team's history. You are all members of the new Omega-7, but you are not the first. The original project, codenamed Pandora's Box, was our first attempt to weaponize Abel. It ended in a nuclear firestorm. So pay close attention, because this is a lesson written in blood and reinforced concrete.
The long and short of it, he got bored of breaking out, so he offered to fight for us. We gave him a team, slapped a kill switch collar on him, and sent him on missions. But our enemies, they weren't a challenge for him. He called them cattle. He got frustrated, contemptuous, so eventually he disabled his own collar and broke containment. The only way to stop him was to detonate the site's on-site nuke. Total loss. Facility, personnel, everything. The lesson was simple. Pointing a hurricane at your enemies is a really bad idea if you can't actually control the wind.
And for years, that was the end of the story. Abel was just too dangerous, too volatile to even consider using. But then, a new piece appeared on the board. A total game changer. Person of interest 7420. A man who goes by the name of the Astral Knight.
This was Abel's opinion of the original Omega-7. He saw them as fragile, slow, toys he had to be careful not to break by accident. His contempt was so thick you could taste it. He was a lion forced to play with house cats.
And this was his reaction after his first duel with Brian Masters. Do you see the shift? It's profound. For the first time, maybe in centuries, he found an opponent he couldn't just steamroll. He found a real challenge. He found something interesting.
And this is what just fascinates me. He's not just trying to kill the knight.
He's analyzing him. He's respecting him. He actually recognizes the tactical genius, that mind of a mason that perfectly counters his own storm-like fury. This isn't just a rivalry anymore. For Abel, this is an education.
So, what does all this mean for us, for you? This rivalry has changed the entire game. We have a new version of Abel on our hands, and frankly, that presents a whole new set of very sharp, very cold problems.
This is the final result of their last duel, with all safety protocols disabled. Yeah, it was a mutual takedown. They both ended up on the floor. But look closer at the notes. Masters achieved a decisive tactical victory. He fought Abel to a complete standstill and forced him back into his regeneration cycle inside the cube. He proved it could be done.
These were his last words before he dematerialized after that fight. Think about that. For an entity who has only ever known rage and the heat of battle, who has shrugged off every wound you can possibly imagine, to feel the cold of a true defeat, that is a fundamental seismic psychological shift. It means he finally understands what it feels like to be vulnerable, and you can bet he will become obsessed with overcoming it.
I want you to take everything you think you know about secure, contain, protect, and just set it aside for a minute. For decades, our focus has been on the thing in the cell, right? The anomaly. Well, we were looking in the wrong direction. The real monster isn't what's in the box. It's the box itself. The walls, the site, this whole planet. The very fabric of reality that we've always taken for granted. And folks, that fabric is starting to get thin. It's starting to break.
Now, to really wrap your head around this new threat, we have to go back. We have to deconstruct one of our greatest hits, our biggest myth. We need to talk about SCP-096, but not the 096 from the official file. No, that thing is a sanitized story, a fairy tale we told ourselves so we could sleep a little better at night. The truth? Well, the truth is a whole lot worse.
I mean, just look at the difference here. It's almost laughable. On the left, you've got our nice, neat, tidy assessment. Euclid, docile, not sapient. It sounds manageable, right? And on the right, you have the screaming truth from the poor souls in the field, tore through them like tissue paper, a skeleton that is physically indestructible. And it's not just angry, it's in a state of pure conceptual agony. The file isn't just wrong, it's dangerously, fundamentally wrong.
This is a direct quote from the commander of the very first retrieval team, Zulu 9A. I want you to really hear this. Half of its torso gone. Its organs were gone, its blood, everything that makes a living thing live. But it didn't stop. It didn't even slow down. So what kind of thing is that? What kind of creature just ignores that kind of damage? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not biological. It's playing by a completely different rulebook.
600. That's the number. The door gunner on that retrieval op pumped 650 caliber rounds into 096 in just 20 seconds. The effect? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Might as well have been throwing spitballs at it. That isn't just tough. That's a violation of the rules. And for years, we never stopped to ask the really important question. A violation of what exactly?
And the answer, funny enough, it didn't come from some high-level experiment. It came at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the most boring, mundane place you can imagine, the Site 19 canteen. The last place on Earth we ever expected the universe to, well, to show us its seams. This whole thing took place in under 40 seconds. It started with a pressure drop, so sudden it made your ears pop. And then, total silence. And then, there was a crack. Not a sound you hear with your ears, but a feeling. The feeling of something fundamental breaking. The very air in the room shattered like a pane of glass. And underneath the linoleum floor, there was just this hungry, empty void. And then, things started crawling out.
Dr. Harleen, our top containment physicist, was there with me. She measures the Hume field. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, think of it like reality's blood pressure. 100 is normal, stable. What she saw was a drop to 34. That isn't just a dip. That's a catastrophic event. It means the laws of physics basically took an unscheduled smoke break. And her conclusion? It's the scariest part of this whole mess. The slack is gone. Our reality, our universe, it's lost its flexibility.
So this whole thing kicked off where all good ideas do. 4 in the morning, fueled by terrible canteen coffee, right after that reality fracture incident. I was in the lab with Dr. Harleen, staring at scans until my eyes burned, and then it hit me. It was one of those eureka moments you only get from pure, uncut exhaustion. Okay, now really look at this.
On your left, that's a stabilized image of one of the entities from the canteen fracture. On the right, that's our most detailed morphological scan of SCP-096. You see it, right? The jaw, the elongated bones. The similarities go way beyond skin deep. They're structural, and they are absolutely undeniable.
How undeniable? We're talking about a 94% skeletal parity. That isn't a coincidence, people. That's a calling card. It was a terrifying, world-breaking clue that forced us to throw out everything we thought we knew about where 096 came from.
And all that data led us here, to what we're calling the brittle world hypothesis. And here's the kicker, the part you need to internalize. We've been looking at 096 completely backwards. It's not a monster that wandered into our world. It's a symptom. It's a piece of whatever exists in the cracks of reality that somehow got stuck on our side. It's proof that those things can exist here.
So, if we got its origin wrong, what else did we get wrong? Well, that forced us to look at its trigger. Why does seeing its face cause that unstoppable rage state? We always chalked it up to being predatory or territorial. But the truth is so much stranger, and it has everything to do with the basic laws of physics.
We're calling the mechanism conceptual agony. Think of it as the observer effect turned up to 11. When a person sees 096's face, our baseline reality is forced to render it, to acknowledge and define something that is fundamentally incompatible with our universe. And for that entity, being forced into our set of rules is pure, unadulterated torture.
Let's break down the sequence. Step 1, someone looks at it. Step 2, the very weave of our reality snaps tight around it, defining it, which causes it unimaginable pain. Step 3, the rage state. It's not an attack, it's a reaction. It needs to erase the observer, the source of the rendering, to stop the agony. It runs, it kills, all just to get back to its preferred state of quiet, unobserved non-existence.
This is the crucial point. It's not driven by malice. We're dealing with a cornered animal lashing out to stop a profound metaphysical torment that we, unwittingly, have been inflicting on it for decades. And that, right there, changes the entire ethical landscape of its containment.
But this new understanding gave us a wild idea. If the problem is that our reality is too brittle to handle it, what if we could make a small patch of reality unbreakable? This led us to authorize a cross-test with POI 7420 to see if we could literally anchor the fabric of space-time around 096's cell.
Okay, let's walk through the first test. It was incredible. We had Brian cast a reality stabilization ritual around the containment chamber. Then, we deliberately triggered 096. It went into its rage state, it charged, and for the first time in Foundation history, it hit a wall. Not steel, a wall of pure, stable logic. 64 impacts, and the anchor didn't even flicker.
You can feel the excitement just reading Dr. Harleen's log entry. The control room was electric, because we weren't just stopping it, we were gathering data on how. We were recording the exact EV harmonic frequencies Brian was using to basically iron out the wrinkles in space-time. We were reverse engineering a miracle.
And that test gave us this new principle, the logic lock. What it means is, if you can create a high enough density of Humes, a pocket of reality so ordered and stable, then anomalous information, like 096's ability to just tear through matter, simply can't pass through. The rules are too rigid.
Now, physically stopping a breach is one thing. That's a game changer on its own. But the logic lock theory suggested something even crazier. What if we could use this, not just to build a better wall, but to stop the trigger from ever firing in the first place? What if we could sever that conceptual link between observer and observed?
This was the central question of our second test, and it's a mind-bender. We weren't building a physical barrier anymore. We were trying to build an informational one, to create a conceptual blind spot, to put SCP-096 into a kind of cosmic incognito mode, where the observer effect itself is surgically removed from the equation.
And it worked. Oh, it worked perfectly. We had D9022 stare at a high-res photo of 096's face while Brian held the logic lock. And nothing. SCP-096 never moved, never screamed. It had absolutely no idea it was being watched. The official report from the D-Class subject really says it all.
And this table really gets to the heart of why we're all in this room today. Look, POI 7420 is incredible, but relying on a single human being who needs 12 hours of sleep and a steak dinner to recharge is it's not sustainable, and it's definitely not scalable. But the data we got from him, That lets us build a technological solution, the Astral Anchor Array. Which brings us to you, to implementation. Let's get into the brass tacks, the new containment protocol for SCP-096, and what this is going to look like for your teams on the ground. At the heart of this new array is what Dr. Harleen has brilliantly dubbed the Starlight Null Frequency. By tuning our existing Scranton-based tech to these very specific EV harmonics, we can replicate the logic lock technologically. We can create a Hume buffer that doesn't just block things you can touch, it blocks the very information of being seen.
So, effective immediately, this is the new protocol. Number 1, engage the array around 096's primary cell. Number 2, confirm the logic lock is active using your Hume sensors. 3, you will monitor continuously. And 4, that array stays at 100% power until you hear otherwise from this department.
This is the most important takeaway for every containment lead in this room. Your new number 1 metric is a stable Hume reading. Any fluctuation, any drift at all, you treat that as a potential containment breach. Not a breach of a wall, but a breach of reality itself.
Okay, now, the part that's been keeping me up at night. We need to talk about the unintended consequences of this success. Because when you create a pocket of hyperstable reality in an otherwise brittle world, you don't go unnoticed.
This breakthrough forces some really unsettling questions to the front. Are we even containing 096 anymore, or are we just slowly erasing it from existence by denying it observation? And when we create these bright, stable lighthouses of reality, what kind of attention are we attracting from the things that prefer to live in the dark?
During both tests, I was watching the deep spectral feeds, and I saw them. Those same things from the canteen fracture, they were there. They were pressed up against the outside of Brian's reality anchor, and they were watching. This note from my personal log really sums up my biggest fear about this whole project.
And welcome to what is, without a doubt, the most important briefing you are ever going to get at this facility. You're slamming the book shut on an old and frankly ugly chapter of containment. I'm here to teach you how to survive the new one, so I need you to pay attention because your life is literally on the line.
For far too long, our main way of dealing with SCP-106 was reactive. It was brutal and it was monstrous. What you're going to learn today isn't just a new set of rules, it's a whole new philosophy. We're moving away from desperate lures and into proactive prevention. We're moving from fear to control. And it all starts with understanding exactly what it is we're trying to keep in the box.
And to get the new rules, you first have to get, let's say, intimately familiar with the monster we're caging. We call him the Old Man. Honestly, it's a nickname that I feel doesn't even begin to capture the sheer, reality-bending horror of this thing. So let's fix that, shall we?
Okay, first thing you need to burn into your brain. You do not touch him. You do not touch the black, mucus-like gunk he leaves behind. Everything SCP-106 makes contact with just starts to break down. We're talking rust, rot, decay, all happening at a speed that just shouldn't be possible. On people, on living tissue, we think it's a kind of pre-digestion. So yeah, it's not just a defense. It's how he starts eating you before he's even dragged you away.
Now this is our biggest headache. The Old Man can just walk through solid matter. Walls, floors, even lead-lined steel. It's all just murky water to him. He can pop into a wall on one side of a building and drip out of a ceiling 3 rooms over. This ability to just ignore physical barriers is exactly why he's got that Keter classification.
And let's be crystal clear, he is a predator. But he doesn't hunt because he's hungry, he hunts because he seems to enjoy it. He'll grab multiple people during a breach, not to eat them right away, but to play with them. He also has a very clear, very disturbing preference for people in the 10 to 25-year-old age range. So for a lot of you sitting here right now, you are exactly his type.
So let's put it all together, right? He looks like a rotting old man who can climb walls like a spider. He won't kill you on the spot. He'll cripple you, sever a tendon, break a leg, and then drag you off. And one of his most dangerous moves, he's patient. He can go dormant for months at a time, lulling everyone into a false sense of security, right before he comes out in a highly agitated, highly aggressive state.
So, where does he take you? We call it his pocket dimension. Think of it as his personal lair, a little slice of hell he made just for himself, where the normal laws of physics just, don't apply. He controls everything in there. He can make a single minute feel like a year of agony. Anyone taken is considered lost. There is no rescue, there is no escape,
There is only what he decides to do with you.
Now that you get the threat, let's talk about how we used to handle it. And I need you to listen to this with a clinical ear, okay? Because understanding why we failed in the past is absolutely critical to making sure the future works. This protocol was born from pure desperation. This was Recall Protocol 000-02-1. When a breach happened, we would take a D class, someone in 106's preferred age range, and we would break one of their long bones, usually a femur. Then we'd put them inside the containment cell and blast their screams over the entire site-wide PA system. The hope was that the sound of a terrified, injured young person would lure the old man back. This is the femur breaker I was talking about. It was barbaric, and it had to stop. Now, we did make some progress. We noticed that 106 seemed to get confused by really complex structures, and it really didn't like sudden bright light. Building those ideas into the cell design dropped escape incidence by 43%. Which, yeah, that's a big improvement, but it was just treating the symptom, not the actual disease. A breach was still a very real possibility, and our only answer was still that horrific lure protocol. We needed a breakthrough.
And then we got one. My colleague, the brilliant, if a little clumsy, Dr. Rebecca Harleen and I were running a cross-test. We wanted to see what would happen if we put 106's reality phasing up against something that wasn't from our reality at all. We brought in a person of interest to see if his unique talents could contain the uncontainable.
The results were, well, they were staggering. We started a tiny controlled microbreach, and as 106 appeared, our POI, Brian, he didn't attack, he cast a spell. An emerald cube of pure magical energy, a force gauge, just materialized around the entity. And when 106 tried to phase through it, it couldn't. It actually recoiled. For the very first time, we saw something stop its phasing ability cold. Then when it tried to duck back into its pocket dimension, Brian's energy actively blocked it. The portal just fizzled out.
Dr. Harleen, she put it perfectly. The arcane energy was making local reality too rigid for 106 to pass through. It was like it was forcing space-time to hold its shape, blocking the old man's main way of moving and escaping. He was trapped, contained by something that follows the rules of magic, not physics. And this showed us the way forward.
Memorize this number. This is the absolute minimum safe distance you must maintain from SCP-106's primary containment cell at all times. There are no exceptions unless a breach is declared and you are specifically ordered otherwise by Level 4 personnel. We have this rule because even with our new systems, this thing is a master of finding the smallest crack in our armor. Distance is your first and your best line of defense.
These are the bedrock directives. No physical interaction. Ever. Getting an exception requires a 2/3 vote from O5 Command, which, trust me, is about as likely as me giving up coffee. And listen very closely to this last one. If you are taken by SCP-106, you are considered killed in action. We will not be coming for you. No recovery attempts will be made under any circumstances. The risk of losing more staff is simply too great. It's a grim reality, but it's one you have to accept.
And finally, your immediate action drill. The telltale sign of a breach is that black, corrosive mucus appearing on a surface where it shouldn't be. If you see it, what do? 1. Do not touch it. 2. Evacuate the area. Calmly, but quickly. And 3. Report it to site security the second you are clear. Your swift and correct response can be the difference between a minor incident and a full-blown, site-wide catastrophe.
Now, I want you to look at his file. See that big friendly word, safe? If you walk out of this room today still believing that means harmless, I have failed. Officially, he's SCP-507. Safe class. Simple enough. But to the staff who know him, he's just Tommy. Sometimes Houdini. And yes, for one very strange week, he insisted on being called Grabnock the Destroyer. That disconnect right there, between the mild-mannered guy and the world-ending title, that's exactly why we're all here.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the man himself.
If you passed him in the hall, you wouldn't look twice. He's the definition of unremarkable. And that, right there, is what makes this so deeply unsettling. He's a walking, talking, cosmological event that looks like he could be your uncle.
So, what's his gimmick? Well, he randomly vanishes. Poof. He gets yanked into another universe with zero control over when, where, or for how long. And the craziest part? He's a really good-natured guy about it. He even has a morbid fascination with our other residents. He's actually put in requests to visit Fernand the Cannibal and once asked to challenge Abel to a game of tic-tac-toe. We, denied those, for everyone's safety.
And now for the part of the briefing that'll keep you up at night.
where does he go? The files call them displacements. I call them field trips to the worst places imaginable.
This happened early on. He shifted into a place of pure, perfect blackness. Couldn't see a thing. And then he heard it, a quiet, rhythmic breathing, right next to him. He did the only sensible thing. He found a corner, curled into a ball, and waited. The moment he returned, he asked for a flashlight. He hasn't let it out of his sight since.
Another time, he landed in a perfect replica of this facility, only it was dark and derelict, and filled with what he thought were bodies covered in mold. Then he noticed the mold was moving. The bodies were slowly, rhythmically expanding and contracting, breathing. He bolted for the exit, got outside, and found the entire world, the trees, the ground, everything was coated in the same living, breathing fungus. We're pretty sure it was a cordyceps-style planetary infection.
You know, sometimes the shortest reports are the most chilling. He came back from one trip, pale as a sheet, just muttering, "So many spiders." That's it. That's all we ever got. He will not say another word about it. Whatever he saw was enough for him to ask for a gun. We gave him one that shoots rubber bullets.
Which brings us to the smiling man. He found himself back in that pitch-black dimension. This time, though, he had his flashlight. He switched it on, and inches from his face was a man in a business suit with a grin that was way, way too wide. And the thing looked at him and said, "Back so soon?" Tommy's response was to empty his pistol and pray he shifted out of there fast. So, those are the things that can happen to him. Now, let's talk about what he can do to you. Pay attention, this part is not a drill. 14 days, 2 weeks. Burn this number into your memory. It's the only safe window we have. We've tracked his shifts for years. They've never happened less than 2 weeks apart. That is your grace period.
This is the golden rule. If it has been more than 14 days since he last came back, you do not touch him. You don't shake his hand, you don't clap him on the shoulder, you don't even brush past him in a narrow corridor. After that 2-week mark, he becomes a walking, talking, one-way ticket to hell.
The reason for this rule has a name, Agent Blank. He got complacent, put a hand on Tommy's arm on day 15, Tommy vanished, and the agent went with him. Tommy eventually came back, the agent did not. Whatever they saw there was so bad, Tommy still won't talk about it. So understand, this protocol isn't a suggestion, it's a memorial.
For the longest time, we just assumed he was some kind of teleporter. We were wrong. The truth, we think, is much more disturbing. This new theory changes everything. We're starting to realize that reality isn't some solid, immutable object. It's more like a fabric, a weave. And under enough stress, that fabric can get worn thin. It can develop microscopic tears, localized failures. We call them metaphysical fractures.
I actually asked Tommy what it feels like when he shifts. His description was perfect. He said it's not like moving. It's like walking on a frozen lake, and for just a split second, the ice beneath your feet just ceases to exist. You fall. He's not breaking through a wall, he's falling through a crack in the floor.
And that led me to a new conclusion. He isn't traveling at all. He's falling. Think of him as being dense, metaphysically heavy. So when he happens to stand on a part of our reality that's worn thin, one of those fractures, it just can't support his weight anymore. The floor gives out and he slips through to whatever's underneath. He doesn't cause the shift. Our failing reality does.
So what does that mean for you?
Well, in the unlikely and deeply unfortunate event you get pulled along with him, you'll need to know what to do.
Your standard issue kit is simple. It's about survival, not winning. You get a high-powered flashlight because you never know if where you're going will even have light. You get a handgun that only fires rubber bullets. Your goal is not to kill an interdimensional horror. It's to stun it, to startle it, to create enough distance to run. But the most important piece of equipment you have isn't in a bag. It's in your head. It's following the 2-week rule.
You need to change how you think about him. SCP-507 is not an anomaly that does something. He's a symptom. He is the canary in a cosmological coal mine, and he is telling us that the air is getting very, very thin.
The best analogy I can give you is this. He is a living Geiger counter. But it doesn't measure radiation. It measures the decay of reality itself. Every single time he unwillingly falls through the floor of our universe, that's a click. It's another data point telling us that the very foundation we are all standing on is getting more and more brittle.
Now, I know you all aced the standard containment seminars. Fantastic. Now I need you to, gently set fire to about 80% of that training. This isn't your average safety briefing. Think of this more as a cosmological structural integrity report. And you're the new engineers.
You see, I had a little chat recently with our resident entity, SCP-343. You probably know him better as God. And let me tell you, when the guy upstairs starts talking about cracks in the foundation of the universe, you listen. And what he told me is so absolutely critical to your survival, and the survival of, well, everything, that this briefing is now mandatory. So, listen up.
Okay, so let's get right into it. At most sites, the number one fear is something getting out of its box. Simple enough? Here at Site 17, our biggest worry is the box itself. The very fabric of reality, starting to fray, starting to decay, and eventually, snap. We're not just prison guards here. We are the structural engineers for all of existence. No pressure. To really get why reality is so fragile, we have to go back to the beginning. To a family argument so fundamental, it puts a constant grinding stress on the entire cosmos.
And look, this isn't just some sibling spat. SCP-343 laid it out for me. Kane is basically a living, walking library cursed to preserve everything, every fact, every memory. Abel, on the other hand, is a living weapon, hardwired to destroy everything he touches. You have two opposing, absolute forces, and their very existence is a constant push and pull on the universe itself.
We have a name for it, the original dissonance. And it is not just a fancy term for our reports. Think of it like two massive tectonic plates grinding against each other, day in and day out. That constant metaphysical friction, it creates stress fractures in reality. It's why if we ever put those two in the same room, it wouldn't just be a containment breach, it could be a localized reality failure. A sinkhole in existence.
Let's talk about SCP-049.
SCP-343 dropped this little riddle on me, and it really gets to the heart of the whole problem. For decades, we've treated the plague doctor SCP-049 as some kind of monster who's obsessed with a made-up disease he calls the pestilence. We were completely, totally, and profoundly wrong.
And this just lays out his tragic flaw perfectly. The pestilence isn't a germ. It's not a virus. It's a conceptual wound, a spot of decay in the fabric of reality. But his mind, it just can't process that. So he translates it into the only thing he understands, biological disease. And then he tries to perform surgery on a cosmic problem. He's literally trying to patch a hole in the universe with bone and dead flesh. You see, he isn't a malevolent doctor. He's a walking, talking, early warning system for reality decay. He's a terrified man with a scalpel trying to stop the universe from bleeding out. And for decades, we've been treating him like a common killer. We haven't just been misinterpreting him, we've been ignoring a fire alarm because we didn't like the noise it made.
Which brings us from the fire alarm to the fire hose, our most promising asset and quite possibly our single greatest threat. A man who doesn't mess with scalpels. He uses a sword made of starlight. Let's talk about POI 7420 Brian Masters.
The O5 Council is ecstatic about this guy, and frankly, who can blame them? He put Abel down for the count. We didn't even think that was possible. He created a logic bomb inside 682's head. He even managed to freeze the old man's pocket dimension solid. For all intents and purposes, he is the ultimate Keter killer.
All of this terrifying, world-ending intelligence comes from one source, SCP-343. The entity who loves a good chat, makes a surprisingly decent burger, and is officially classified as safe. And this is where things get truly dangerous for us, as researchers, as an institution.
His official file is glowing. It notes his positive effects on staff morale. People in this section are happier, healthier, job satisfaction is through the roof. He seems completely benevolent, just a friendly neighborhood omnipotent consultant. But when you start digging, when you go into the old fragmented server logs, the ones nobody's looked at in years, you find gaps, things that shouldn't be missing. This is a piece of a document from a Dr. Mark Magnamargino ordering that anyone visiting SCP-343 be questioned, an order that seems to have just vanished from our reality.
And this is the silent, insidious threat he poses. It's not just that the document is gone. The doctor who wrote it, he's gone, vanished from our records, vanished from our memories.
I've asked people who were here back then. No one remembers him. SCP-343 doesn't just make you feel good. He passively, quietly erases institutional memory. He edits our files. He edits us.
So, what in the world does all of this mean for you, the new faces here at Site-17? It means your entire understanding of what we do, our prime directive. It has to change, right now.
Your job is no longer just about keeping monsters in cages. That's mechanical containment. That's Site-19's problem. Here, we practice metaphysical containment. Your focus has to shift from physical threats to conceptual ones. Your tools aren't just concrete walls and guns. They are balance, careful observation, and a very, very healthy dose of paranoia. Your goal isn't just to stop something from escaping. It is to stop the entire world from becoming brittle and snapping apart like cheap plastic.
And I want you to remember this. This is the official object class of the being who told us our greatest weapon could break the universe and who is actively erasing our ability to remember he ever gave us that warning. Safe. Let that sink in.
So this is it. This is the one thing I need you to burn into your brain, just in case someone decides to edit it out later. Here at Site-17, our most powerful tools are also our most dangerous liabilities. Our greatest sources of intel are our biggest data risks. You have to question every solution, every report, and every single warm, fuzzy feeling of certainty you get walking these halls.
Okay, last section. And I need everyone's undivided attention right now. No fidgeting, no checking your data pad. This comes directly from the top.
Eyes up. What you are about to see is a direct communication from 054. This does not leave this briefing room.
Got it?
Do not mistake our approval for a license to be reckless. The Council sees the incredible potential here, but they also see the risk. We've been handed a powerful new tool, but remember, hubris has always been the deadliest anomaly of all.